If you ever wondered what you need to run a game of TTRPGs like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, this video is for you. First off, you need a bag to carry everything, all right? Then, because I'm Indian, I need a smaller bag to keep inside the bigger bag. Of course, I'm going to be needing stationery so that my players can write on everything that they need, and a nice 3D printed box to store all the pens in. And of course, additional pens so that I can draw cards as and when needed, and this is what I use in place of maps. Of course, a fancy ass pouch to keep everything nice and orderly. Then, since I don't like to use very fixed and concrete maps, I like to use these Montessori blocks. They come in like two different sizes, as well as some colored wooden dominoes to indicate various things as I build a map in runtime. I have index cards as well, and I use this permanent marker so that I can write down player names and track initiative with that. This is my trusty D20. It's big, it's chunky, and it looks normal in my hand. Beyond that, I have a bunch of Elder Futhark runes that I have 3D printed. I often use them to mess with my players' heads in terms of deals with hags or visions or prophecies and things like that. Also, to track monsters in Initiative, I use these other initial 3D printed prototypes. I use these Call of Cthulhu medallions to give a devil's bargain, where I will give players some important information or an automatic success in exchange for them accepting this said token. And at any time, I can take it back and use that action to change any of the player's roles to any number that I choose. I also have this crown that I designed and I got 3D printed, and I use this to track inspiration. I give them to my players as inspiration. These are abstract tokens that my players can use to represent their characters, and these are additional crowns for that same sort. Most of my monsters, if you're wondering, are going to be from the Futhark runes because it's easy, each one of them looks unique and works. Beyond that, I also have a bunch of these cards. This is an X card, and on the back of it has a code of conduct that I recommend. And then, of course, the GM screen. As much as possible, I try to avoid using the DM screen because I feel like it's an unnecessary barrier between me and the players. And of course, this is my one-page adventure plan. And how that works is there's a revelation list, there's a list of locations. I've even written down a prophecy or something. And when I'm running the game, I prepared a situation, right? And these are the information pieces that I must make sure that my players get from a variety of sources. It could be from NPCs or from letters or rumors or whatever, what have you, right? As long as my players are able to collect all of this information, I'm confident that they will be able to understand what's the situation and what's happening. Then I have this one character sheet. This is for D&D 5e, and each section is labeled and demarcated. I use this to introduce new players to tell them, hey, these are your attributes, these are your skills, saving throws, etc. I walk them through the whole thing in the very beginning. Of course, simple notepad, and then this is the meaty stuff, all right? I also have this thing called farts, which I place on the table every time they're playing. And it corresponds to fight, avoid, research, trick, speak, right? These are the 5 things that players can do in any situation. Yesterday I added this other one called ask questions because it seemed like a good thing to add as well. These are the cards that, similar to the ones that you saw over there. These are the cards that I use to actually form a map or something for players to latch onto. I don't use like a specific map like the one that you'd probably find on like battle maps on Reddit or something like that. The reason for it is I find that to be very constricting and I can't make up things on the fly. So I have a variety of different cards for locations and items and whatnot. And I just plop them out on the table like so, right? So then they can see that, oh, okay. So this is a weird blacksmith's workshop. So there's an anvil and about maybe 20 feet away, you see that there is a hook, and hanging from the hook is what looks like a tiger skin. All right, so that's just something I made up on the spot, and that's why I love these cards, right? So beyond that, I have a list of NPC names, which are uniquely flavored to the homebrew setting that I'm building. And this is another interesting list. It's a list of epic things. these are the things that will be memorable when players experience them, right? So first off, I'll just give you an example of a Fist of Power, right? So in the middle of my town, there is like a big necromancy magic spell that is a giant claw, and it's holding a golem that has run amok, all right? And somewhere else, there's a spectral rain of snakes that is perpetually happening, right? So I will describe this, and so these are just notes for me that will like jog my memory, and I describe this to my players so that it's like, oh wow, that's an epic thing, and they will remember that. And the last thing is where I have dropped in clues for my players, right? So if they start the game, let's say at the Palisade, right? That's usually where they enter the town, and from there they'll get something that'll point them to the obelisk or to the Creek Bazaar, and depending on what they want to follow, they'll get more and more clues, and they'll be going around. So there you have it, folks. This is what's in my GM bag, and I've run this adventure maybe like some 15, 20 times, and this is all I need. And the reason I'm making this video is so that you also understand that you don't need fancy ass setups, and something as basic and as simple as this, basically dice and a bunch of abstract tokens and some drawings. If you don't want that, you can just double up with this. That's more than enough for you to run a great TTRPG game. Thank you for watching.